Hello everyone, welcome to the daily editorial analysis brought to you by Shankar IAS Academy, 12th March 2025. Displayed here are the list of articles that we will be discussing today. The first article, the more signs of overhauling the compliance framework. The article is taken from the newspaper The Hindu, which is talking about the Jan Vishwas 2.0. And the second article, building compassion into healthcare structure. The article is also taken from the same newspaper The Hindu, which is talking about the importance of compassion in the healthcare system. So without much delay, let's begin our discussion with the first article. More signs of overhauling the compliance framework. The article is taken from the newspaper The Hindu. So why we are discussing this today? Because the recently released India Business Corruption Survey 2024 revealed that nearly 66% of business in India faced problems like bribery and other corruption. So this encouraged the government to announce Jan Vishwas 2.0. We know that the Jan Vishwas Act 2023 was enacted to promote the ease of doing business ambience in India and also to reduce the corruption. Now we are going to the Jan Vishwas 2.0 with further reforms which will further enhance the ease of doing business in India and will also expected to reduce corruption and other issues in the business sector of India. So let us discuss more about this article. So what are the key findings of this business corruption survey 2024? So nearly 66% of the business admitted that they are paying bribes to the government officials, and the next is the 54% were cursed for approvals, permits and complaints. And what are the worst hit sectors? It includes labor, GST, income tax, pollution control, health and property registration. And we know that corruption is a major deterrent to the foreign direct investment. That means if the corruption is there, which means there is nothing is going to be good. The outcome will not be good. That means it will reduce the inflow of the foreign direct investment. And this study highlights the need for further reforms in Jan Vishwas Act and digital governance and transparency. So what is this Jan Vishwas 2.0 which was announced in the Union Budget 2025? So the Jan Vishwas Act 2023, like I mentioned in the beginning, it was enacted to improve the ease of doing business in India and also to reduce the problems like corruption and bribery. And now this Jan Vishwas 2.0, it expands the the Jan Vishwas Act 2023 by further decriminalizing nearly 100 plus provisions across multiple laws, and nearly 180 laws will be reformed under this Jan Vishwas 2.0, and this will cover sectors like taxation, labor, corporate, environmental and intellectual property laws. And what are the key reforms that we can expect in this Jan Vishwas 2.0? See, first is the one nation, one business ID. We know that currently we have different business ID cards like PAN, that is permanent account number, or GST IN, that is GST identification number, and we also have separate licenses and permits for different entities. But now the government is planning to unify the all business identity cards into one with the principle of one nation, one business ID, and that unifies nearly 23 business identifiers for ease of doing business ambience. And the next is the promotion of DigiLocker for business, which eliminates the paperwork and also speeds up the approval. We know that to get if you want to start a business, if you want to file an application, then you have to pay some amount of bribe. Then if you want to get the approval for your entity, then you have to pay some amount of bribe. So these type of conditions will deterrent the people from taking up professions in the field of entrepreneurship and also coming up with the new ideas. So these type of issues will be eliminated once we digitalize the system. And the next is regulatory simplification. That means a high-level committee will be established to review and to make recommendations to further enhance the ease of doing business ambience in India. And what is the significance of this Jan Vishwas 2.0? That means it will boost the India's ease of doing business ranking. And the next is it reduces the corruption and also reduces the bureaucratic delays. We know that the digitalization will help in speeding up the paperwork and also simplifies the formalities. And the next is encouraging domestic and foreign investments. That means if if the government or the government officials are corrupt, then the other nations or other entities from other nations will also will not be encouraged to make investments in India. This can be resolved if you implement the provisions of the Jan Vishwas 2.0 properly. And the next is facilitating labor reforms. And the next is facilitating labor reforms. The Gen Vishwas 2.0, it is asking, asking the state governments to implement the provisions rapidly to reduce the complexity related to the business or entrepreneurship. So, what are the challenges and concerns associated with the implementation of Gen Vishwas 2.0? First is the incomplete decriminalization. That means, now the Gen Vishwas 2.0, it is planning to make changes in nearly 100 plus provisions in the Act. But still, you have to understand that to 20,000 plus provisions still mandates imprisonment. And the next is bureaucratic resistance. That means the officials exploit the complex rules for bribery. That means if a person who is approaching the public office, if he or she does not have a proper idea or proper influence, then there is a high possibility that the officials exploit him. So next, coming to the challenges and concerns associated with the implementation of Gen Vishwas 2.0. First is incomplete decriminalization. That means still we know that the Gen Vishwas is bringing nearly changes for nearly 100 plus provisions in the Act, but still 20,000 plus provisions still mandates imprisonment, which raises a lot of concerns about starting a business. And the next is bureaucratic resistance. That means the officials may exploit the complex rules for bribery. For example, if a person does not have sufficient influence or sufficient knowledge or idea, then there is a high possibility that the public officials may utilize that opportunity to exploit the person. The next is state level variation. That means differing laws regarding labor, land and environmental issues across the states, so which can further delays the implementation or brings confusion regarding the implementation of the provisions of this Act. And the next is digital and cyber security risk. That is, success depends on reliable internet, strong security and data privacy. We know that the Gen Vishwas 2.0 is going for digitalization to reduce the corruption and other issues, and also enhancing transparency. But still, it is depending on reliable internet and vulnerability. There are concerns associated with the vulnerabilities of cyber security issues and privacy of the laws and the privacy regarding the data of the people. So why this Gen Vishwas 2.0 is critical at this time? First, the reason is the global competition. For example, recently the United States of America, they introduced the Department of Government Efficiency to cut the bureaucracy. That means the cutting the bureaucratic delays. And the ultimate objective is developing the ease of doing business ambience. And if you take the Singapore and the United Arab Emirates, they developed a better ease of doing business ambience through digitalization and simplifying the formalities. And China is also getting massive amount of foreign direct investments because of their investment friendly policies. But coming to the case of India is at risk because of the delayed reforms. And now it is high time, because if India does not take proper measures, then there is a possibility that India may lose the investors and the talent we have. And urgent need, that is eliminating corruption, red tapeism and regulatory hurdle is key to attract the investments. We know that if there is too much complexity or paperwork or bureaucratic hurdles, then the other countries or other entities from other countries may hesitate to invest in India. So these type of issues has to be eliminated, and for that we need this Gen Vishwas 2.0, and which is now very critical. So in this topic we discussed the Gen Vishwas 2.0, why it is important and what are the expected reforms in this Gen Vishwas 2.0. So based on our discussion, try to answer this mains practice question. The question is, discuss the significance of Gen Vishwas 2.0 in improving the ease of doing business in India. What challenges might hinder its effective implementation? So this question has two parts. So first part, we have to discuss the significance of this Gen Vishwas 2.0. So last we discussed, because the other the global countries, they are we discussed, we know that other countries like United States of America, United Arab Emirates and the Singapore, they are going with the simplifying the regulatory hurdles, and they are reducing the bureaucratic delays through various steps, and they are also giving more importance to digitalization. So it is a high time for India, because if you are not taking this reforms, then India may lose the investors and the talent. And what are the challenges that might hinder its effective implementation? Like I mentioned again, the bureaucratic hurdles are there. If you go for digitalization, then it is vulnerable to cyber attack, and it also raises significant concerns about the privacy of the people as well. So try to answer the question and post it in the comment section. We will review and we will reply for your answer. Now it's time to move to the next article. Building compassion into the healthcare structure. The article is taken from the newspaper The Hindu. So why we are discussing this article today? Actually, on February 7, 2025, the World Health Organization released a report on compassion and primary healthcare. We know that compassion, a quality which makes every individual more beautiful, right? So imagine that a person shows compassion to you, or you are showing a compassion to another person. The ultimate result will be reduction of stress, tension, relief, reduction of anxiety, and in the end of the day, it makes everyone happy, right? So this compassion has a huge role in the healthcare too. So let us discuss why. So why in the news, like I mentioned, the World Health Organization released the report Compassion and Primary Healthcare on February 7, 2025. And why this compassion is needed, or why it matters in the healthcare. First of all, it improves the patient's outcome, which means it reduces stress, helps in speedy recovery, and also enhances the treatment effectiveness. For example, the Stanford University, they conducted a study on how the compassion will bring more effective outcomes in the healthcare system. And then we have this John Hopkins University, they studied the methods to develop compassion and altruism within individual and within society. And the next is it strengthens the doctor-patient trust. We know that if you observe your neighborhood, you can see certain old people will regularly visit only one doctor. That is because they have a trust on that particular doctor. And this will help in completing the course of medication. It improves the healthcare, and at the same time we can also make sure that the people are completing their they are completely taking their medicines, and they will not refrain from taking certain medicines and all. So it encourages better adherence to the treatments and improves ultimately the patient satisfaction. And the next is it reduces the burnout in the medical professions. So to understand that, we have to understand the difference between sympathy, empathy, and compassion. We know that sympathy, it's a feeling. That means if you are feeling sorry to a person, then that is known as sympathy. And empathy means you are understanding the patient's or a person's pain, but over a period of time, you will burn out. But in the case of compassion, it refers to a mindful resolution to the problems faced by the patients with the ethics, which means we know that if you take the medical professions, we can see that they are working for a very long time. They will continuously work in night shift, which will make them tired physically and mentally. So the inclusion of the compassion in the healthcare system can enhance the emotional resilience of the medical professionals, preventing them from exhaustion, and also ultimately it improves the healthcare. And the next is support holistic healing. That means the inclusion of the compassion will address both the physical and emotional well-being of the people. And the next is addresses public health challenges. We know that compassion, right, it is a quality of a person's ethics, right? It's a quality of a person's morality. That means inclusion of the compassion will ensure that the all population, that means the population from different socioeconomic background, are treated in the hospital with the dignity. So how we can integrate the compassion in the medical training? First one is teaching the emotional balance, that is differentiating the compassion, sympathy, and empathy. We know that sympathy, it's a feeling of sorry to a person. Empathy means understanding a person's pain, but it will eventually lead to burnout. And the next is compassion. That means a mindful resolution to a person's problem. So this will help the professionals to avoid the emotional overload. And the next is reforms in the medical curriculum. That means inclusion of compassionate communication, ethics, and patients' engagement in the medical curriculum. And the next is hospital policies for compassion. That is encouraging quality patient interaction without rushing consultations. We know that if you go to hospitals with rush, you can see that even before completing your concerns, the doctor will give you the list of medicines that you have to take. So such poor communication between the patient and the doctor will not bring a satisfied outcome. And the next is healthcare staff well-being. That means we have to provide certain facilities that helps the professionals to maintain a work-life balance and also supports their mental health. Like I mentioned, the healthcare professionals, they have to work for a long hour, and sometimes they have to work continuously in the night shift, which will ultimately leads to stress, anxiety, and this will also affect their family life. So we have to take care of the well-being of the medical staff as well. then only we can maintain, or then only we can ensure that the compassionate care is sustainable. So what are the challenges that we have in India to to integrate this compassion in the healthcare system? First is a low doctor patient ratio, which means high patient load reduces the personal care. Like I mentioned before, sometimes the doctors may not even listen to your problems. They will give you a prescription without even listening your problem completely. And the next is overcrowded hospitals. That means limited staff and resource also sometimes affects the quality of the treatment. And the next is lack of soft skill training. That means giving more importance to the technical aspect rather than the moral or ethical aspect of the people. And the next is financial barrier. That means we know that the high cost of the medical care sometimes denies access to people from certain communities from getting quality treatment. And the next is administrative burden. That is, excess paperwork reduces the doctor patient interaction. So in this topic we discussed what is the role of compassion in the healthcare system. So based on our discussion, try to answer this mains practice question. The question is, compassion should be a driving principle for healthcare institutions. Analyze this statement in the context of public health and medical ethics. This question is a 10 marks question, and you have to write around 150 words. Post it in the comment section. We will review and we will reply for your answer. So it's time to move to the next article. With this, we are coming to the conclusion for today's editorial analysis. If you like the video, hit the like button, give your feedbacks as comments, and share this content with your friends. And before leaving this channel, don't forget to subscribe and also hit the bell icon to receive on-time update from Shankar IAS Academy. Thank you.